Hello everyone, welcome to another session of Lucid Mains. Today, let us look at the topic of jobless growth in India. This is a very important topic for your GS3 preparations. So, let us begin by looking at the latest news regarding jobless growth. Recently, there was news that two top functionaries of the National Statistical Commission, namely its chairman and a non-government member, resigned from their post in protest over the NSSO withholding its new employment survey. Also, the media reported that this NSS draft held the unemployment rate in India at 6.1% in the year 2017-18. Now, this rate is the highest since 1972-73. The data also shows a decline of 2.6 percentage points in the labor force participation rate. These data has again raised the question of whether India is experiencing something called jobless growth. So, let us see what jobless growth is. Now, in a normal economic structure, as the economy grows, it creates more jobs. This in turn helps incomes to rise, which people then spend, pushing up growth further. This again leads to more job creation. Thus, it forms a virtuous cycle that keeps lifting people out of poverty and helps transform an emerging economy. But in case of jobless growth, the economy is growing, but fewer jobs are being created. So, jobless growth can be defined as an economic phenomenon in which a macroeconomy is experiencing growth while maintaining or decreasing its level of employment. Now, whether or not India is experiencing jobless growth is a highly debated topic, but results from various studies have pointed out that India is indeed experiencing this trend. For instance, this scenario is highlighted in the State of Working India report released by Bangalore-based Asim Premji University. The report states that currently a 10% increase in GDP is resulting in less than 1% increase in employment, which is far less than the desired levels. This trend is also visible in the declining labor force participation of India for the past few years. Now, let us look at the factors that have resulted in jobless growth. The most notable cause is the skewed growth rate of India INC. As we know, India's growth is largely driven by its service sector. The sector is the biggest contributor to the GDP, but it employs less than 30% of the workforce. So, even if it contributes to growth, it does not create proportional number of jobs. Another instance of skewed growth is the capital-intensive industries. India did not move from the import substitution phases to an export-oriented development strategy. Hence, the country failed to witness a strong growth in the labor-intensive segments of manufacturing like textile and apparel. Rather, growth was witnessed in capital-intensive industries such as automobile, iron and steel, etc. This again resulted in fewer jobs. To add to this is the rapid growth in technology that made transition from primary sector difficult. The next cause is the lack of reliable data regarding India's job market. Various agencies such as the NSE, Labour Bureau and other private agencies use different methodologies to quantify the job market in India. One such method is using the payroll registration under the Employment Provident Fund Organization or the EPFO as an indication of new employment. However, these methodologies are often criticized of being unreliable. Now, this lack of data is a serious issue not only because it denies citizens' right to information, but also because of the fact that quality data is essential for the government to make effective policies. The next cause for jobless growth in India is its complicated tax regime and labor laws. Issues such as multiplicity of laws, over-regulation, regressive trade union activities, etc. have in fact led to disincentivizing in employees from fresh hiring. The slow growth of India's MSME sector has been another cause for jobless growth. Now, the labor intensity of MSMEs is 4 times higher than those of the larger firms. SMEs employ roughly 40% of the workforce of the country and contribute to around 45% of India's manufacturing output. So, compared to larger firms, MSMEs are in a better position to create more jobs. But Due to factors such as its informal nature, outdated infrastructure, and limited access to credit, the MSME's growth potential has not been fully realized. To add to this is the issue of infrastructural bottlenecks that India faces, like interruptions in power supply. Besides these factors, a critical reason for jobless growth is India's educational system. India's educational atmosphere continues to be academic oriented rather than industry oriented. Also, avenues for quality vocational training and lifelong learning have limited priority even today. As a result, the employers are forced to spend extra on training fresh recruits or adopt capital intensive mechanized industries, thus severely reducing the need for human labor. This trend can also result in our demographic dividend turning into a demographic burden. Last but not the least is the delay in formulation of legislations. For instance, for a couple of years, the legislations aimed at easing business environment has been stuck in the parliament. This includes bills like the Code on Industrial Regulations and Code on Social Security. Moving on, let us look at what all we can possibly do to overcome this situation. The best and sustainable way to overcome it is to formulate a labor policy. Now, this policy should be in tandem with the new industrial and manufacturing policies. Also, it should seek to create a database and conduct periodic surveys to analyze the trends of the job market. The policy should also focus on striking a balance between incentivizing the employers for creating more jobs while at the same time ensuring employee welfare. Another measure that can be adopted is to boost the entrepreneurship instinct within the young demographic base and substantially invest in human capital. For this, the scope and extent of initiatives such as Skill India, Startup India, Swayam MOOC, etc. needs to be expanded. Now, regarding the issue of labor data, the larger problem undermining the statistical system in our country is the politicization of data. Now, if India's system is to regain its luster, politicization must stop. Also, agencies such as the NSSO must be provided with adequate autonomy, funds, and manpower to undertake periodic surveys. The agencies should also be promoted to look into technologies like big data and artificial intelligence to improve the quality and accuracy of their surveys. While these are long-term measures, as a short-term measure, the government can take actions to fill the huge vacancies that exist across various central and state government posts. It is estimated that in the central government alone, there are roughly 2.4 million vacant posts. Just filling these vacancies would provide much needed employment and ensure that public services are served better. Another measure that can be adopted is to ease the business environment in our country. This can be made through measures such as single window clearance, low cost of compliance, granting self-regulation, etc. Lastly, a long-term measure that can be adopted is to implement the Niti Aayog's action agenda. It has identified several labor-intensive sectors such as apparel, electronics, food processing and tourism where employment needs to be encouraged. But it is left for the government to initiate such measures to exploit these potentials.